I sometimes get asked, where do I buy my cameras? And I buy them from eBay, from car boot sales, vintage fairs, auctions. I sometimes even get given them. But occasionally charity shops, all the normal places. That is where I would say I buy cameras. And the other day I was at a vintage market in the lovely little town of Bridport, and I didn't expect to find anything there, but there was a seller and they had this small gadget bag, small camera bag, and inside was this Olympus AZ300. Now, as someone else said, it doesn't look that much like a still camera, it looks more like a video camera. And this camera came from 1988, and at the time it was launched, it was the longest range zoom, I believe, or that's what I've been informed. 1988, we were seeing the beginnings of zooms on compact cameras, but there was an issue in getting the length of the zoom, and camera manufacturers were looking at ways of changing the design. Plus, there was a sort of feeling that the SLR market was great and the compact camera market was great, but perhaps there was something in between. And in a sense, this is a bridge camera. And the other manufacturers came up with, Minolta and Canon, all came up with similar long zoom compact cameras, which were a little bit different. And I had actually never used one of these beasts. Some of them take slightly odd batteries, and they didn't have a fantastic reputation by photographers at the time. But I was quite intrigued by this, and I paid the grand sum of £5. Plus, a bonus was it has a battery that actually was operating and said it was full. So I thought, right, let's use this thing and see how we get on with it. It's dead easy to load the film because you simply place it in, it's DX coded, and if you are using a reloadable cassette, it will just default to 100 ISO. And I loaded the film, and it's a bit of a dread with self-loading cameras because that's the first point, sometimes they don't work. But this loaded brilliantly, and the seals were quite nice on it. And I did find it's a bit strange how you hold it, because you basically need to have two hands. As you can see, it's got a viewfinder here, a flash at the point, at that point there, you've got a sensor there, focusing sensor, and on the top you have a LCD screen, which again is quite novel for cameras of this time. There's no stabilizer way to stabilize the camera apart from your hands, so you can see the problem there. The zoom is operated on the top, and we have, let me check, we have from 38mm to 105. It's a 12 element lens. We simply switch it on and off at the top. A very nice positive switch. We have some interesting information. We have that S stands for single frame. I'll come back to that. Number of exposures, if it hasn't got film in, the flash, and it tells me that I haven't got a film in. And I actually used this camera at the weekend, and actually quite liked using it. And it was only when I got home that I thought, I'm sure it should have some more buttons to press. I'm sure it has some more options. It has got a spot here for focusing, but I thought, I'm sure it has more. And then I realised, and I looked at the instruction book, there's a button here. You press that button, and there's a flap here, and you have the choice now of a flash, a button for subject, and that will allow you macro mode for flowers, a portrait mode, a whole figure mode, and infinity landscape mode. So as I change those modes, it gives me those different icons. I've also got a plus and minus, which I presume is exposure, and finally I've got a drive mode, and I can have it on continuous, single, or self timer, or even double exposure. So it gives me a number of drives there, which I think is very useful. I was actually quite surprised how I actually enjoyed using this camera. I was a bit nervous of putting it on telephoto, thinking, well, how still is it going to be? So let's have a look at how I got on when I actually used this. This was taken on the Solent in Hampshire. The first image is a little bit blurred, a little bit disappointing, but we'll see how we go on from here. The second image is a lot sharper, and this is actually on the telephoto, and the camera was actually quite relatively good to keep still. This image is absolutely fine, so I was quite relieved about this one. This place is called Cowshot, and it has some personal significance for me because my dad was stationed here in the 1950s. It's on the edge of the Solent Water, so it's just opposite Southampton, sheltered by the Isle of Wight, and they had flying boats here until the mid-50s. But this is an old Tudor castle here, which I was hoping that would be open, but unfortunately it was closed. This was on about April the 1st this year. And there we see the Tudor castle, and we see a aircraft hangar on the right hand side, and we also see the control tower. The planes would actually land on Southampton Water, on the sea basically. There's the sea, and in the distance is the oil refinery at Fawley. Now this camera actually worked quite well. I only had a short bit of film to try out on, but it was actually far better than I had imagined. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.